Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Seeds for Change, a podcast by the Institute for Applied Ecology. My name is Sierra Dawson, and I am your host for the episode today. If you know IAE, you're probably most knowledgeable about the work that we do in the state of Oregon, because after all, that is where IAE was born and raised. But did you know that IAE also has a whole other branch across the southwestern states? At the end of last month's episode, I told you that Seeds for Change will be taking you on a trip, so I hope you came packed and ready because we are ready to take off en route to Santa Fe. In today's episode, I sat down with Melanie Gisler, the director of the Southwest branch of IAE. As you'll hear from her, Melanie's journey to founding an entirely new branch of an organization was fascinating. Thanks to her expertise and initiative and the support of IAE and all of our partners, a series of events happened just right to make this all come together. I truly came away from our conversation today feeling inspired by her and her path, and I hope you do too. So without further ado, here's Melanie Gisler. Hello, Melanie. Thanks for sitting down with us today and having a chat.
Sure thing. Yeah. Thanks, Sierra.
For people that might not be familiar with you, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself, name, pronouns, and your current position at IAE?
Sure. I'm Melanie Gisler. I'm the Southwest Branch Director in Santa Fe, New Mexico. My pronouns are she, her, and that should cover it.
Yeah. So in this podcast, there's been a couple of running trends that I like to draw parallels between the people that I talk to. So I've been having this trend of starting off with asking people about their earliest memory, if it's childhood or young adolescence. Basically, what drew you to the environment? Do you have a story or a particular moment that you can remember that really got you interested in the environment in one aspect or another? And yeah, it just made you want to know more about natural sciences, I guess.
Great. Yeah. Well, I actually have two stories, if I may.
Yeah, go for it.
In my really early childhood, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my mom was interested in studying botany, and she studied botany at Palomar College. And at that point in time, she hadn't realized yet that her real calling was to be an artist. But she would, spend time in the lab and bring home these beautiful drawings of the dissected plants that she would see under the microscope. But then what she did was she turned those into art. And so that kind of was one of my first inspirations. And it really, captured my imagination and piqued my curiosity for, the natural world and plants, especially. And then another sort of formative time was when I was in elementary school. We lived really close to the beach, the Pacific Ocean, and I was really lucky to get to spend a lot of time playing at the beach, playing in the sand, and seeing all the creatures at the beach and just getting fascinated with them. And then we moved from California to New Mexico, and then when I was a teenager, I was fairly isolated up in the mountains, living in a ponderosa pine forest.
Ooh, mhm.
Yeah, so we were right next to the Cibola National Forest, which is sort of near Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I spent, a lot of time playing in the forest, and, I got to see a lot of diversity of plants and animals, and, everything just seemed really magical. So I feel like those things were what sort of got me interested in the natural resources field.
Cool. Oh, I didn't know that we shared like a California origin because I am also from Southern California,
Oh,
and
really?
I tell people a lot. Kind of unfortunate that I wasn't a marine person. That wasn't my calling because I could have stayed in Southern California because that's a hot spot of that field. But
Definitely.
so yeah, I was a beach kid, but I was also drawn to more like I wanted to be around forests and trees a little bit more than I got in Southern California. So that's kind of how I ended up
Definitely.
here in Oregon. But it's cool that you also had that like beach time and then moving to New Mexico and getting some mountain time too. And I love that your mom had an influence too in cultivating your interest in plants too, with artistry of like plants that she was seeing, at her job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was mostly under a microscope. So it was like all this crazy cell structures and the xylem and the phloem, but she just like She just did such a good job. And now she's an artist.
Cool. Well, yeah, okay. So grew up in Southern California, moved to New Mexico. Walk me through what your academic path was. Where did you go? Where'd you do your undergraduate? Where'd you do any higher education from there? Any degrees that you have, and then any highlights that you had during your academic path? Would love to hear anything about that.
Sure, yeah. So I was living in New Mexico and I went to the university here, University of New Mexico, and I got a bachelor's degree in biology. And yeah, that was, I guess, my highlight from my undergraduate career was again of some outdoor time, getting to go to Puerto Penasco to study marine invertebrate biology. That was
Okay.
fun. I got to see some nudibranchs and things like that. So, um, and then I also, during that time, I was a work study student at the UNM Herbarium, and so I got a lot of exposure to the diversity of plants, and that's definitely was piquing my interest even more in plants. From there, I went to the University of British Columbia, and I got,
Oh, that's a jump.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I wanted something really different. And I got my Master of Science in botany. And I just had the best time with my research project. I was studying an estuary plant, a checker mallow. There's checker mallows in Oregon, there's checker mallows in New Mexico, there's checker mallows in British Columbia, and this one was one that grows in the estuaries. And I made a discovery. I discovered that there was a weevil that was eating the seeds of the plants that was driving the breeding system. So if you want
Oh.
more information about that, I can share it. But it was just a really cool project, and it was fun that I got to make a discovery.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah, what was the Chuckamel species you're working on?
It was called Henderson's checker mallow.
Okay. Yeah.
And we have some in Oregon. It's
Hmm.
practically extirpated in Oregon, but is it's rare up in British Columbia, but it's doing a lot better there. And there's some populations in Washington.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. From my time doing Nelson Sugarmill's surveys here in the Willamette Valley, the conversation about weevils. I've had many conversations about weevils predation on checkermellows, so I am
Absolutely.
familiar with that. So it's really
Yeah.
cool that you got to have a discovery about that too.
Yeah, and it's also how I met my husband because he
Ooh.
also studied checker mallows and weevils, and we met at a conference. And years later, we end up getting married, and we have weevils on our wedding rings.
I love that so much. Oh, oh my gosh. My conservationist heart just like I love that. That is great.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, that was a really big jump to go from New Mexico to British Columbia. And yeah, totally do something completely different in a different part of the world. So awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I feel really lucky.
Well, my next question for you was just a general tell me about how you got involved with IAE. And side note, I am cheating a little bit because I looked at your staff page. And I know that, your work with IAE really started here in Oregon. And of course, you are now the Southwest branch director. So we will get to that transition in a moment. But I wanted to hear about, your origins with IAE, maybe here in the Willamette Valley.
Yeah, I actually started, well, I was working for the Bureau of Land Management with West Eugene Wetlands, running sort of sea collection crews and helping with their monitoring crews. Um, and um, that was a term position, and I had been, you know, interested in the work of IAE, and I had friends at IAE. My husband actually was colleagues with Tom Kay, and a lot of our work overlapped, and so the Kelly Kuykendall, who was the director for the Native Seed Network at that time, reached out to me and said that there was a position opening to be a webmaster of all things, which it's kind of funny because I was solidly a field person and but I was really intrigued because it was to be a webmaster for the Native Seed Network, which was a website to connect buyers and sellers of native seed. And I knew how much we need native seed to do restoration. I felt like this would be a really useful tool. And so I said, yes, absolutely. I'd love to come work with you guys. And it was really exciting time too, because there was maybe 3 or 4 of us working at the office at that time. And so it was the early beginnings of IAE back in 2000.
Oh yeah, right after it was founded then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was fun. We started in I was still they were still working out of Tom's garage at that time.
Oh my gosh. I love the humble origin of IE so much.
Very grassroots.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it was exciting too because so much of the work that we were doing was completely novel and it was needed. And so it
Hmm.
felt really good to be doing work that was conservation work that was needed.
All right, so you got your start as a webmaster, which is really funny. I think I had read on your staff page. I'm cheating. But I also just know that, yeah, from that brief summary, you have a lot of experience with a lot of different areas of IAE too, if you want to talk about any of those things as well.
Sure, yeah, and I was just going to share a little bit more about the Native Seed Network because
Yeah.
it's something that we're revamping for the modern day now and through the plant materials program at the Northwest office.
Hmm.
So the way that we had to make it work back then was I had to work really closely with code writers because we were doing, we were doing like the back end writing to have this interactive database where people could enter their information and it could, provide reports and people could click on the map and see, show where they say, I want to get the seed list for this area. What are the lists of species and, who has them for sale, things like that. And so it was a really complex process. Yeah. And so that was fun. And we did launch the Native Seed Network website and people were using it. And then we started becoming more interested in doing native seed collection ourselves.
Hmm.
And so I wrote a proposal to get sort of our first native seed collection crew at IAE. And I believe that was funded by the Fish and Wildlife Service. And that just grew from there to the point where we started the Willamette Valley Native Plant Materials Partnership. I think that was around 2005 or 2006, and I sort of helped get that going. And then, through that, we started developing the seeds and had the seeds ready for restoration. We were feeling primed for that. And some opportunities came along with the Wetland Reserve Enhancement Program. And so we were then able to pivot, and then I shifted my roles from being webmaster, plant materials person to becoming sort of more of a restoration ecologist. And so
Gotcha.
kind of immersed myself into doing mostly wetland prairie restoration, some upland in the Willamette Valley. And but this is pretty large scale, probably doing, a few hundred acres a year. And yeah, and we had a lot of support from contractors and partners who had started developing expertise in this area. So yeah, it was a very collaborative effort that sort of helped us, gain all that expertise at IAE.
Hmm.
And we brought a lot of expertise, especially through the plant materials side of things.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, and so I worked as a restoration ecologist for a number of years, and then I ultimately at the Northwest office then became the habitat restoration program director, and I did
Okay.
that
Yeah.
for a while. And then my husband got a job in New Mexico, which is where I grew up. So I was pretty happy to, get to come back to the Southwest. And it was heartbreaking to leave IAE. But when I arrived here in the Southwest, I discovered that, there was a need for the kind of work that IAE does. And I reached out to Tom, and Tom reached out to the board, and I talked with one of the board members, and there seemed to be some general support for moving the model of what IAE is and the mission to an area that could really use, you know, the work that we do, which is to restore native species and habitats through restoration, research, and education. So that was sort of the first steps of having a Southwest office.
It seems like you have followed native seeds from like sourcing them and building a resource for where people could figure out where, to get seed sources from, all the way to implementing and planting and seeding part of habitat restoration. You've kind of followed seeds from source to putting them out on the ground throughout your career. That's really cool.
Yeah, and that's something that IAE strives to do as well. And it seems like it just makes you so much better at all of the steps if you understand what's going to happen to that seed and where that seed came from and everything in between. You can do a better job at each of those phases. So, yeah.
The last interview I did was with Sarah Leka, one of our restoration ecologists here in the Northwest. Well, we had a brief conversation about self-discovery and choosing a different path or the courage that it takes to like shift gears career-wise. And you've made some jumps in your career, from California to New Mexico, all the way to British Columbia, and then Oregon, and then back down to the Southwest. So you've been very dynamic in your career in that way. And you kind of had already touched on the reason, your husband getting a job that had brought you from Oregon back to Santa Fe. But I just wanted to hear if you had anything else to say about your experience shifting your work from IAE in the Northwest to founding the Southwest branch, because that's not something that just happens overnight. That's a very big process. And I kind of just wanted to hear your perspective about what has it been like to build out a whole new branch of IAE?
Oh yeah, it's been exciting. So it, happened rather organically. Well, one of the things that worked in my favor was that IAE was hosting National Native Seed conferences in Santa Fe. And so the year that I moved to New Mexico, that was coincided with the year that we had one of those conferences. And so I got to do a lot of networking with some of the local folks. But also, it, in addition, the year that this office opened, there was the release of the National Native Seed Strategy in 2015. And one of the things I had been talking with our partners with about was the fact that, we need native seeds. And especially in the Southwest, I had been, talking with all the restoration people around here. I was really curious, where do you get your seeds? And they didn't have a very good answer for where they got their seeds. And they were pretty disappointed with the selection that was out there, very few forbs, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And most of the seed was cultivars. And so, I would start having these conversations with the Bureau of Land Management here in Santa Fe, Zoe Davidson, and then also happened to run into Catherine Kennedy, who is the regional botanist for the Forest Service, at a Native Plant Society meeting.
Cool.
And that's sort of how it got going, as she gave us the seed money to start the Southwest Seed Partnership. And in addition to that, we had an opportunity through national funding from the BLM that the education program got to develop a native plant curriculum for the Southwest. And so those were sort of our two first projects. And the seed money was like $10,000. But, I was one person at the time. So that was just enough to kind of get things going, start having some meetings. And honestly, it snowballed from there because there was such an interest in this topic and this kind of work.
Hmm.
One of the important things was, coming into a new area like this was to establish a technical advisory board. And so I found a botanist, the state botanist here in New Mexico. I worked with a rangeland ecologist, a fire ecologist, and also an entomologist. And we created this group where we talked about what are the conservation gaps in the Southwest and what gaps is IAE best suited to fill, but trying to be as respectful as possible to the conservation groups that were already here. We wouldn't want to do
Yeah,
something that somebody else was already doing. And
right.
through working through with these experts who had been here all this time, we were able to make sure we identified things that were truly needed and nobody else was doing at the time.
Hmm.
So I think that was really important for founding the office. I got, I presented at a conference about our work, and a couple people started volunteering with us here in the Southwest office. And then soon they ended up becoming employed by the Southwest office,
Nice.
and we got seed crews and all this other stuff. And today, right now we have 14 employees, and we're anticipating 30 people that will hire as seasonals this summer to serve on
Wow.
our either seed crews, our rare plant monitoring crews, things like that. And so, yeah, we've grown.
That's huge. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, I heard a ton in that
Sorry, I
response.
should give you more time to interject.
No, you're all good. I loved just kind of hearing how it started out and how we've worked our way up to the staff and just yeah, the workforce that we have now in the Southwest. I love, first of all, um, that it seems like, as you said, the founding of the Southwest branch has been a process that kind of organically happened, and you identified a real need for the type of work that IAE was doing up here in the Northwest, and translate that appropriately to the Southwest. I also loved hearing that the beginning of the Southwest really started with you, but also it was very much a like multi-stakeholder like process where you brought in all types of different people that have different type of expertise, and we all sit around, and it's like, okay, here is where we are. Here are some of the organizations that are already doing this, and this work. But yeah, where can we fill in? Where can we, expand and connect? Really,
Yeah.
it sounds like the founding of the Southwest branch was really a process of connecting people and establishing kind of like a framework and a base, for native seeds and everything else. So
Absolutely. We can't be successful with native seeds if we don't have a network and we don't collaborate because the work is just too grand.
yeah, for sure.
And I will add that one of the people on our technical advisory board way back in 2015 now serves on our board and of directors. That's Ann Bradley.
Nice. Cool. I love this. And yeah, I know we hear a lot about how IE got started here in the Northwest, but the Southwest branch is rapidly expanding. And I know you all are about to move into a new office, correct? A new
Yeah.
space?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, ever growing. I love it.
Yeah, and yeah, we're right now we're in several different places, and I remember
Yeah.
that was the case for the Northwest office, and so this new office space will get us under one roof, and we have this a huge warehouse attached to our office space where we can do all our seed cleaning work, and have our equipment, and hopefully put on some events that we can connect more with our community here in Santa Fe.
Do you have any favorite part of the work that you do now on like a day-to-day basis? What is a highlights of your position now in the Southwest?
Yeah, well, right now I'm just really enjoying seeing the work that the staff are, doing and getting into. I feel like, we're doing some pretty large scale projects now. the Southwest Seed Partnership, uh, which is managed by Gwen Wyon, our plant materials program, is we're doing a lot more seed production now, and really sort of meeting some of our objectives for that partnership. So it's exciting to see us have this sort of dream of where we want to be, and seeing, through the work of these great staff, us able to get there. Also, we've got this new project called River for Monarchs, and that's also a collaborative project where we're creating stepping stone habitat for monarch butterfly and other pollinators along a 200-mile stretch of the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande is part of the fall southerly migration for monarch butterfly, and so we need to be able to provide nectar and larval host plants for those hungry butterflies, for both breeding and to support their migration. So I guess I get really excited to see what the staff do and how they're doing things that haven't really been done before. And I have to admit, I love when I have the chance to go in the field myself. I feel like that makes everything I do more real. Like if I'm trying to write a grant proposal, how can I write a grant proposal about restoration if I haven't seen a site or I haven't gotten my hands dirty? So
Yeah.
I think that's not only an important part of the job, but it's sort of what keeps me, happy doing all the different roles that I have as the Southwest Branch Director.
Definitely, yeah. Staying connected to the work on the ground too, on top of all of the, I'm sure, endless computer work that you have to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I was also just going to mention too, another expansion that you might not be aware of is one of our longer term ecology staff people, Ashley Wolf. She has moved to Arizona and opened somewhat of a satellite office. She's working
Oh,
out of her home, but she is helping us do more work in Arizona. So that's been really great having her over there.
cool. Okay. Those were all of my core questions that I had ready for you today. This has been a trend, though, to end the episode with a couple of what I call lightning round questions, which are intended to be like fun questions that don't, answer in 60 seconds or less. Try not to think too hard, kind of thing. I have three of them for you. So, yeah, we can move into lightning round if you're ready.
Sure. Bring
Cool.
them on.
All right. I like it. All right. My first one, because this is a staff focused podcast. What is a fun fact about you that you want more people to know?
Ooh,
That's a hard one.
for lack of anything better, I was going to share a hobby of mine, and that
Yeah.
was that I really enjoy paddleboarding and
Ooh.
skiing.
Okay, cool. Those are great. Those are good things. I also
Okay.
think we probably had already touched on what I think is the funnest fact ever earlier when you said you have weevils on your wedding rings
That is
because of how
weird.
you met your husband. So maybe that question was already answered earlier, but cool. I like it. Um, Second one, what is a species that you wish to work with in the future if you don't work with it right now? So any species, doesn't have to be plants.
Hmm. Yeah. There's we are working a little bit with the New Mexico meadow jumping mouse out here, but it would be great to expand our work with that species.
Wait, okay, hold on. I have to hear just a little bit more. I'm breaking lightning round rules, but jumping mouse? What? Tell me more.
So there's this mouse, and it actually does jump. You can see YouTube videos of it.
Uh-huh.
And it occurs in riparian areas in New Mexico, and it's pretty rare.
Hmm.
And so we've been doing some habitat restoration projects for this species. We're developing plant materials for the food that it likes to eat.
Okay.
And so in a lot of the places where the mass occurs, there's been a lot of overgrazing, a lot of changes in the stream hydrology. And so we like to work in combination with stream hydrological improvements and collect the seeds that the jumping mouse needs. And this is determined through research where they looked at what was in the guts of jumping mice and determined that these are the species that they're actually eating, that are in their diet, growing those plants, and then making sure they have those plants in their habitat.
I was Googling what this mouse looks like just because I'm very curious. And yeah, that's about what I expected. It's so cute.
It's really cute.
Okay, but yeah, the work is yeah, making sure that it has food available, pretty much, the forage and things. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. That was interesting. I was not expecting that. One final question for you today, Melanie. What is your best advice for somebody wanting to get into natural sciences, botany, native seeds, things like that? What would you advise someone to do?
Oh, I guess I would just say, follow your bliss. That was the advice my dad gave me when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and it seems to have served me well. Always, like if you're really interested in something, just pursue it, whether it's a plant, an animal, or just an ecological relationship.
Mhm.
And then also don't always feel like just because you are, you're working in one area that you need to stay in that narrow focus, that, there's ways to, especially working in an organization like IAE, where you can expand that work and make it better by getting involved with other types of projects, similar to what I did with IAE, of starting with seeds and moving into restoration. It's, don't limit yourself. So follow your bliss and don't limit yourself.
I like it. I like it. Good advice. Okay, those are all the questions I had for you today, Melanie. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about your long career path with IE. It's been so great just hearing this little snippet, so I can imagine your experience has been so expansive. And thank you for all the work that you've done in getting the Southwest branch started. And I'm looking forward to all of the pictures and highlights that we get out of the field season from you guys down there.
Great. Yeah. And thank you so much, Sierra. That was a lot of fun, and appreciate your enthusiasm and this podcast.
So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode and learning about Melanie and the work of IAE's very own Southwest branch. It is truly incredible to have so many people across so many states working together to conserve and restore native species and habitats. If you are in the southwestern US and you want to get involved with IAE's Southwest branch, they have their own Instagram and you can follow them at applied_ecology_SW. Thanks so much once again for tuning in and listening, and we'll meet back here next month. Until then.